Hey y'all, this is Straight from the Coffin with...
Oh, Jude.
Oh, I was gonna say two goss.
Oh,
two goss in the coffin.
It looked like you were throwing it to me.
I was throwing it to you.
Oh, for me to say two goss?
Yes.
You didn't tell me that I was gonna say that.
I just was hoping that you'd pick up on it, but it's fine. This is Straight from the Coffin with two goss in the coffin, and I'm Amari.
And I'm Jude.
And someday we'll get our intro right.
One day,
but
hopefully.
That's not gonna be today.
No.
Or ever. Let's be honest.
Well,
maybe after 50th try we will sound put together. But you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So today we are recording and presenting to you
our Claudia episode.
This is our third episode, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. It feels like we've done several of these because we've recorded many a times.
We record basically every podcast twice.
Yeah,
so we've done this like 6 times, but we've only put out 3.
You know,
it is what it is.
What it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta do it again.
Sometimes you just gotta do it again.
But yeah, so we've done our fandom racism one. We did our... Let me not kick our little...
It hopefully won't pick up that much.
Okay.
It's not like the desk anymore, thankfully.
Oh, I'm about to sneeze.
Well, get away.
Let's see, y'all. Will they sneeze? No. I fought it off. I'm very brave.
Very brave.
For facing
your fear of sneezing.
Yeah. I don't actually have a fear of sneezing.
No.
Anyways.
We recorded the one where we talked about the racism in the Interview with the Vampire fandom.
And then we talked about
Louis.
The People's Princess.
The People's Princess Louis.
If you haven't listened to either of those, you should listen to those.
Yeah.
You might want to listen to those first. At the very least, if you're listening to this one, you should probably listen to the Louis one first. We'll probably like refer back to some things.
Yeah, probably. Just because all these things are connected that we're going to be talking about, which is like race, gender, and sexuality with specifically Louis, Claudia, and Armand.
Yeah.
So we talked about some stuff with Louis that is also relevant with Claudia as well. So
exactly. So I guess like I don't know, can we like get right in? You know, Sinners is really good, y'all.
No, we're not doing these. We're talking about Sinners. Which like I agree, Sinners was really good and we should do a thing at some point on that. But
I just wanted to say that before we get into it. Just, you know, because I can and because I can do what I want. But yeah, okay, anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and get started and talk about Claudia. At the intersection of race, gender, and sexuality. I don't know what's wrong with me. So yeah, and that's really important when it comes to Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
Because
all of those things.
Black, she's bisexual, and she's
a woman.
So, and a lot of those things, you know, they influence how she has to navigate the world.
Yes.
And how people will treat her.
Mm-hmm.
And she also has another intersection as well, is that, you know, she comes from more she doesn't come from money, like, you know.
For sure.
The other folks in her family.
Yeah, and we wanted to like kind of split it up between season 1 and season 2 because I mean, like, there was the obvious delineation, which is there's 2 different actresses playing Claudia in seasons 1 and season 2, but also, like, it does mark a difference in Claudia. Like, season 1 is very much like Claudia starting out as that teenager and then getting older, and then she's fully, like, a grown woman in season 2 and dealing with all of that. Those issues. So we're going to start out talking about the season 1 dynamics.
That's all central to the Rue Royale house.
Yeah.
And the way that dynamic looks.
Yes.
As it pertains to her. And that hierarchy that's there.
Yes. And like we had a conversation like a bajillion years ago about the hierarchy in the house and how it's interesting that class is very interwoven into it for sure.
Yeah.
But also like race and
Race and
gender.
gender.
So like at the head of it is
We have
Lestat,
Lestat,
who is white and a
white and
man.
a man,
And
and that white patriarchy be
yes,
coming out.
yes, and is also an aristocrat. So
Yes.
he places himself at the head of the household, and he has all these things that kind of like to him validate his positioning
Race,
there.
gender, and class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then right underneath is, well, Louis. Sorry, I said it and I was like, I don't know if that sounds like I'm making an entendre. But is Louis. That's like,
we're not talking about that right now.
no, not right now.
Go back to our Louis.
Yeah.
Podcast, whatever episode.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But next is Louis on like the hierarchy, who is a man and is a bourgeois.
Yes. And he's black.
And he's black. And then you have Claudia at the bottom, who is
black.
A woman. Well, starts out as a child.
Yeah, as a teen.
And then grows up, but is trapped in as a child.
Yes.
And then also comes from no money.
Yeah.
Very low socioeconomic status. And then the roles they're locked into of Lestat as the husband and father, Louis as the wife role, and then Claudia as the baby, the child. And it's, you can like feel, I was thinking back to the season 1 episode 4, the moment when like she's holding the necklace up and she goes, what am I gonna grow into this? And you see both of them go like, ooh.
I know. They look at each other like, anyways, they're like,
yeah, because like
I feel like that's like the first like little bit that we get of this questioning from her in regards to how does it look like for her to be able to grow up, like and now
the reality of kind of them being like
that they stuck her in this like
they stuck her in that box and weren't necessarily expecting to have to think about her growing up.
Yeah,
because if that was a thought, they wouldn't have turned her. But it was like, now you have to reconcile it with someone who wants to grow up.
Yeah. Like, the mind still ages, so here you are.
And also, like, what, maybe this is, like, I don't know if this is universal, but as a teenager, I wanted to be an adult so badly.
I know, and, like, she was 14, and, like, immediately, I love you, Louis, but already, like, dressing her, you know, even kind of young, I feel, for a 14-year-old. I don't really know what clothing looked like for that age range.
So
I don't know if you may have a better feel for it because you're kind of
well, the conceptualization we have of a teenager actually didn't emerge until post World War II. So like teenager was really complicated because you were simultaneously a child and then like at a certain point you were just considered an adult. There wasn't really a point in which you were considered something in between child and adult.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a much newer cultural idea. And so at the time when she was turned 1917, they didn't really have that idea of a teenager. So the fact that she's immediately, they're like, we're gonna dress her like a child.
Yeah.
Also has to do with class, because if you were
girl at that, like
if you were working class, you would kind of have a shorter time when you would be in that child role, and then if you were upper class, you would have that longer time of being in that child role. So the fact that they kind of bring her back and she like almost gleefully like acts more immature than we would expect from a 14-year-old, I think has to do with her enjoying her change in status.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
But yes, and Louis dressing her like that is indicative of his social status.
Exactly.
He's like, this is how 14-year-olds would dress, which is as a child, because that's still considered a child. That's also important when like we're having fandom discussions about Claudia and people are like, she's a teenager and like this and the other. I'm like, but they didn't really have that idea of a teenager yet. So
That's super interesting.
they wouldn't really have an idea of a teenager until Claudia was already in her like 30s, late
Mhm.
30s. So until she was in Paris, I don't think they'd have an idea of like, oh, we need a name for this thing when you're not like a little baby, like a child, and when you're not a full grown adult.
Mhm.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
That's really cool.
And the idea of the childhood we have now actually emerged in the Victorian era, but that's a whole different can of worms.
We're gonna just go down a
So it
whole
would actually
other
be
path.
new. So like Lestat would not have grown up with the idea of a childhood that Louis would have grown up with, that then Louis puts on Claudia, which we kind of see in that parenting style as
Yeah.
well. Where like, because kids were also kind of seen as little adults
Yeah.
in his era. It's just like, what do you mean? And then Louis like, no, but like you have to take care of them, because in the Victorian era, which would be when Louis was a child, it's this idea of like, well, childhood is a cherished time and you have to
Mhm.
take care of them, protect them. And Lestat's like, just
And
throw
that
them
comes across in
outside.
their the difference in their parenting styles,
Yes.
largely.
And yeah, of course their own like upbringings
also-
inform it,
and
but those
their-
upbringings I think are also informed by the time period they live in.
Mhm.
But yeah. And so I just think that's interesting.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know. Yeah, so that's really important to talk about. But like, yeah, so then Claudia being pushed back, or not pushed back, but like being brought into this new role, and then you see her enjoy it and then chafe against it pretty quickly.
She starts to like get older.
Yeah, and we learn that she doesn't have any friends. Like she says, like
Very
she can't go out
isolated.
whenever anyone else is out, so it's just kind of her and these two new parents she's been given. It's not found family so much as forced family for her.
Yeah.
Um
Which is kind of unfortunate.
yeah, I think it's just so indicative of Claudia as a person that like the first thing she thinks when she's like, well, I'm stuck in this house with these two hell demons, so I decided to make the best of it.
Yeah.
And that's so fun.
You do what you gotta do.
You do what you gotta do.
Survive. And I feel like that's already been something that she's already just already been in like a survival mode.
Yeah, we hear from her that she had an abusive upbringing, and then we see her do it again in season 2 with the theater vampires, where it's like, well, you just kind of have to make the best of it.
I was just about to say, like, it's unfortunate that that's always kind of been her life. She maybe had like a brief period in Royale when, before she was like,
really bad.
I should be able to like also be treated like the adult that I am now and not have people be so weird about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lestat also starts acting up.
yeah.
And after that, it's just survival thereon, which is really unfortunate. She doesn't really get a chance to just ever really breathe.
Yeah. And Louis loves Claudia, obviously, because he's looking for family.
Yes, we talked about that.
We talked about this in our
Louis, episode, that like he's looking for that community that he's lost. Like, and it's interesting that he finds her right as the community that has been all around him was like literally being like burned around him. Yeah. And he finds her and he finds that that Black community that he really like needs.
Yeah. Because
and, like that family that he like really needs.
Because like we talked about in the Louis episode, like Louis is able to be queer but not Black in the Royale house, and then in his family's house he's able to be Black but not queer. And so by having Claudia in the house, he's able to be both.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think what's also sad is that by him bringing her on, she also like, it doesn't sound like she really had like a very safe community as it was, but like it just further removes her from ever being able to have like Black community, any like Black women in her life, even, which I find very saddening that she never has that kind of figure in her life ever. Aside from Louis, like Louis is all she really like.
Yeah, Louis becomes like basically her whole community.
Yeah.
I think it's really
Which is why she tries so hard to like find community.
Yeah, that's
later
her
on.
whole goal.
Yeah.
Her whole driving force is I want to find people who are like me,
Mhm.
who are like-minded individuals who I can exist and like coexist with and have a build a community with. Her whole thing is building community,
Yeah.
and she so often is punished for seeking community.
Yeah. I mean, Lestat's extremely resentful that even when she first comes into
Mhm.
the family, like when Claudia and Louis are like sharing this like
Yes, that
connection,
they both have the
and
mind
immediately
gift.
he's
Yeah.
like not about it, and he
Mhm.
kind of treats her with resent. Like there on after, like they have their little moments, of course, but
Yeah, I think like there's things that he likes about her.
I guess probably the things that he
Yeah.
relates to.
I think we see that at the begin, like, you know, with the first hunt that they have. And
Yeah.
like
Probably happy that she's more like him in that
yeah,
regard.
he looks
Than
like
he's
so
like
smug
fucking
about it when he's like,
fine.
who does she take after again? And I'm just like, and I think because he's, you know, for complicated reasons, you know, in his relationship with Louis having his own struggles with what it means to how he wants to move forward in this life, and the way that he's wanting to move forward is very different from the way that Lestat has been moving forward and wants Louis to move forward. Namely, Louis doesn't eat people, and Lestat does, and Lestat is upset that Louis doesn't eat people, and it makes it feel like he's rejecting the whole premise of their relationship, which is we're joined together as vampires. But Louis like, but this is I want to be able to have to say in how I live my life.
Yeah.
And Lestat's like, well, I think you're doing it wrong. And so when Claudia comes along and she's like, I'll eat a person, I don't give a shit. Fuck
Yeah.
it. And Lestat's like, okay, I have someone in the house who sees my way. And so trying to influence that side of her so that he can kind of have a little mini him.
But in that same regard, like why there are certain traits that like a Claudia is allowed to have and gets like, I guess, kind of, I wouldn't say praised, but like, you know, is looked upon favorably.
Yeah.
Then there are other traits that are kind of like similar to his that she's not allowed. All of a sudden, it's like, what are you doing? Why are you acting like, you know,
like her curiosity? She's asking a
Yes.
ton of questions. Lestat's like, can you shut the fuck up? And like, as though this guy didn't spend a whole journey looking for answers to questions. Like,
so why is it different? And I feel, and that it goes back into like later on in also season 2 when, you know, Claudia in the trial, whatever, she's like,
yeah, when she
like,
basically like, why is, you know, Lestat allowed to do XYZ, but if I do it, look at where I'm at. I do it, I'm thrown on trial. Meanwhile, he does it, and everyone's like, Lestat things, like, you know, like he gets to slide by.
Yeah, and once again, that I feel like that all comes back down to like those intersections that she kind of exists within as well. So
yeah, but yeah, there's like these like traits that like, and on this note of like Lestat being like trying to encourage these things, so basically he has a mini him. Louis has the conversation in the boat with her about like being very mindful about how you go about and like hunt and how are you gonna live in this life, and like we see also in episode 6 when they're talking about their eating habits that Louis can be a little judgmental in a way that makes Claudia feel bad. When he's just like, actually, technically, you don't need to drink human blood. You're just choosing to drink human blood. And I'm like, well, look at how you're doing physically. He's kind of an almond mom in that way, where it's just like, I understand that you are dealing with things the way that you're dealing with them, but you shouldn't force your child or like look down at your nose at your child for eating the way that they do. I know also we're talking about killing people and not killing people, but also that's tied to how they eat, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's
You
always
know?
complicated with vampires.
It is very complicated.
Yeah.
It is. It's very layered, but you know,
She didn't choose.
she didn't. Yeah, I feel like that's also a big thing. Like she's never had a choice in any of the things that has happened to her. She never really gets to have a voice in any of these situations that she's put into.
And whenever she
And when
tries,
she
she's
tries,
punished. Yeah.
whenever there is an attempt to, there is extreme pushback.
Yeah. But yeah, so there was this book, and it was written about the novel Interview with the Vampire, but it's still relevant for the show, which was it named Claudia as a victim of double patriarchy because she exists in a home with no mothers, with two fathers, basically, who decide kind of what her life looks like, with very little input from her. And it's very much like a literalization of her whole situation because she's really struggling under, I would say specifically in the show version, a white patriarchy, and that unfortunately parts of it are enabled by Louis as well. And like it's just this situation where they've kind of decided what her life looks like, and when she wants a change, at first I would say they're both resistant, but then Louis does give in a little bit in episode 6 when she's like, I actually want to reformat this configuration so that we're on more equal footing, so my brother. And Louis is like, I'll concede to that. But we can kind of see that like it's kind of superficial.
Yeah.
Especially in Dubai, he just straight up only refers to Claudia as his daughter. He's like, I had a daughter.
Yeah. I mean, it was only out loud that he's like, yeah, I'll concede to that. But
yeah,
they've already had this father-daughter, relationship. He's not gonna even.
Yeah.
it would be kind of.
Yeah, and then we see Lestat completely reject that restructuring. And like it's kind of like twofold in my opinion, where like on the one hand it's like him not wanting to change the dynamic at all, and then two, him being like, be realistic. Do you genuinely think I'm your brother? And it's like, no, he's not.
No, like the power dynamic is there.
Yeah,
it's kind of impossible, and he loves to flex it.
We see him flex it all the time. But yeah, but like on that note, there is this like simultaneous like infantilization and adultification.
Yes, that happens
of
Claudia.
Of Claudia by Lestat.
Yeah.
Where it's
by
like
a lot of folks. But since we're talking specifically about season 1 right now, but it does reappear often.
It is, and you see it for sure from Lestat, where like he holds her to a very high standard, but then is also like, I'm making your choices for you.
Exactly. And I always come back to how this is also just like a reflection, since we're talking about like race, gender, and sexuality. Like I feel like this is a reflection of how it is for like Black like young people in general.
Yeah.
How you can be both treated like you don't know what you're talking about, like in that weird infantilization, but also at the same time super adultified.
Yeah.
Where you could be like a little 7-year-old and you're like, okay, but you need to face the consequences for you just doing literally nothing at all. And it's the same way for Claudia.
Yeah, especially because like she's not really getting a lot of good guidance. It's like Lestat is a bad teacher.
But he's just reluctant to like really tell her anything. Anyways.
Yeah. Which makes him a bad teacher. But it's like, he doesn't tell them even what kind of powers they could have.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of hoards
Kind of
that.
leaves them in the dark.
Yeah. It leaves him in the dark on so many things. So that like gatekeeping of knowledge, that happens there in that relationship.
And then basically punishing her for trying to like seek that out.
Yeah. Making it seem like she's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
When she comes back with all of her like books, and he's just like, "Oh, did you get a bunch of books when you went off to college?"
That was so. And the fact that like he kind of like had an idea was been like going on and just throwing everything back in her face like that. You know what? Actually, go to hell. But anyways, but yeah,
Just no sympathy. Like we will. I listen. I don't remember what, but I was like, I said I don't remember what we got into when we talked about season 2, but like for sure in season 1,
mhm.
we see from Lestat this complete lack of willingness to want to empathize with Claudia,
Yes,
even though they have a lot in common.
yes,
Like I would say, like biographically,
yes,
um, she was in an abusive household growing up as a child. He was in
yes.
an abusive household and growing up as a child. She experiences this horrible assault, and then in the next episode we hear him tell a story of a horrible assault and like all this stuff, and he
And it's
just,
so interesting that like
yeah,
he uses that to like try to like appeal to them to bring
he uses that to try to appeal to Louis. He doesn't give a shit about Claudia in that
true.
moment.
True, but like, you know, she's there too.
Yeah.
She's there too. And so like trying to appeal, but then also at the same time lording.
It over her and using it as a threat, and kind of because he knows how bad it is,
Yeah,
so he's like, yeah, like it's evil.
evil.
um and it's just a part of this dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the whole like power dynamic, power
Mm-hmm.
structure of refusing to extend empathy
Yeah.
towards her.
Yeah.
And then we see it again, and I'm gonna drag someone in it who isn't in that house, but it's Daniel, where we
Yeah.
see like Daniel's unwillingness to lend sympathy
Yes.
towards
Okay, because like
Claudia
there's
for the
such.
same situation.
Yeah, no, but okay, because like this is also another great, like not great, but like another reflection of like even real world, like, you know, as like a black person, how
Hmm.
people will refuse to empathize with your pain and the bad things that like happen to you.
Yeah.
How we okay, so disclaimer, we already we already recorded this once,
Yeah.
and we're kind of recording just like
We mentioned
season.
it.
I know, but like
yeah.
specifically, we're re-recording season 1.
Hmm.
Our discussion as it pertains to Claudia,
Yeah.
and we're keeping our season 2 piece that we already did. So I'm just gonna be like, just pretend that all flows, but
If you
but like
if we say something later,
I know
no,
I
yeah.
do know that we briefly talk about just how black pain gets turned into a meme.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Daniel does to
Mhm.
like to Claudia. Um, there's just like a
Yeah.
total lack of empathy.
He literally talks about like the commodification of Claudia,
Yeah.
like turning her into. So I'm gonna use the sexy Claudia Halloween costumes, which is evil to
Yeah.
say.
Which is why, you know, Louis deserved to do whatever the fuck he wanted to. Daniel.
Mhm.
Fuck Daniel.
Mhm.
Especially in that scene.
Yeah. That was the first scene, by the way, where I was like, I think I hate this guy. Because I could not fathom not feeling heartbroken for Claudia.
Yeah.
But I've always been a Claudia lover.
Yeah.
Like,
As you
come
should
on.
be.
Every single episode after the first one, I'd be like, is it Claudia time?
Claudia.
I was like, is it time for Claudia? And then when Claudia showed up, I like cheered like my sports team had won.
I was so excited.
I was like, she's here.
Yes. Yes. Oh my god. Same though.
So yeah, when Daniel was just like, whatever. Like, when he was just like, poor dear.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, yeah, legitimately, she's struggling more than you could ever imagine.
And you know what? This doesn't just it's not just even like within the show. Lestat and Daniel, and even later Armand, these folks who like refuse to like empathize with her.
Mm-hmm.
But I even see, because I'm always going to talk about the fandom as well.
Yeah.
We already kind of talk about things like obviously previously in our fandom racism episode. But like if you're just coming in and we're just listening to this now, I'm just going to talk about it a little bit again, and how there's also is a refusal to empathize with her from a lot of fans as well. I see people who be like, I don't really like Claudia. I don't know why she was so mean to Lestat. And I'm
Hello? She should have been meaner.
like, the man who abused her and threatened her with her sexual assault?
Honestly, even if he hadn't done any of that, I still think she'd be valid in killing him.
I'm not gonna disagree, because
Look at what he did to her.
yeah,
Just by the nature of trapping her in the body that she's trapped in.
she's allowed to do whatever she
She's
wants
allowed to do whatever she
at that
wants.
point.
I'm like, remember how you were at 14. Imagine you're like that forever.
Yeah. God.
I'd kill
God.
myself.
Yeah, that we'd have to wrap it up real fast for me too, but you know, whatever. That's not about. And that's why Claudia is better than all, stronger than all of us.
She's so strong.
She's so strong.
They all underestimate how strong she is.
Yeah, she's
because Armand was like immediately writing her off.
Exactly, and I'm like, can we slow the fuck down? She's already made it all the way to this point. She's fine. You know.
Yeah.
It would be nice if things would be kinder to her, but you're not helping.
No.
Are you?
No.
You could.
Why would Armand help?
You could, but you know, all of y'all could make it a lot easier for her, but none of y'all want to. But you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, literally try to make it worse, but you know, whatever. But yeah, like there's just like this like lack of empathy for her on all sides, and yeah, I just, like I said, it reflects back to just like how people see Black pain and minimize it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even try to like justify it.
Yeah.
And it's really gross.
Mm-hmm.
And then since we were also talking about the infantilization, I want to just call this out again too. In the same way, like, again, as it pertains to the fandom, this like insistence on
portraying Claudia as a baby,
infantilizing her forever.
Mm-hmm.
When this is something that she like really struggles against and like chafes against and like tries to, you know, wants to present herself as the grown woman that she is.
Yeah.
And everyone around her is so resistant to it. And I'm like, why are you going to be part of that? The only time you want to talk about Claudia or portray her is in this like dynamic that like she did not enjoy. She like enjoys it for the first couple of years because she finally gets to, I guess, feel like, you know, coddled and what?
I'm just moving mine closer.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to be slow about it and not call too much attention to it.
It's too late. You already did. I was like, wait, what did I say?
No, you're good.
Yeah, no, like finally getting to like, you know, feel like embraced, you know, getting to actually be a child.
Yeah.
She probably really didn't get to be that, like, but like then quickly, you know, she's growing up, so she's like, okay, well, okay, now I'm ready to grow up, and no one wants to let her do that, including the fandom. Like, come on, can we like explore her as she like is as an adult? The last like, you know, time we see her as an adult, like why are you so attached to the Royale dynamic that
But
was
not
not
even,
good for her.
but also not even the Royale dynamic that
It's
is
this
real.
fake. It's a fake version.
It's a completely fictional version of the Royale dynamic.
It's that one. It's that 40 minutes that we got it. Even that is still within that. You can still see different points of like like that were like
Yeah.
chafing even then, because like Lestat being like, why is she always in her journal? Why is she this? She's like this and this. Like there's
Claudia is
already
straight up saying that like Louis and Lestat have problems, but she can usually try and get between it and make it
yeah.
better again, which is
It's
it's that is
it was
that is a
never
very loaded
yeah,
sentence.
it was never oh god. You saying that just is like a little triggering. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like, damn. Woo. Oh girl. My baby girl. Ooh. But yeah, like it's never great.
Mm-hmm.
It was never great. There were like some little cute moments, some cute shots.
I also think it wasn't as bad as where she'd been, for
Yeah.
sure.
So it was like a grand difference, but like it still wasn't good. And there's still she could still probably like feel that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Lestat wasn't always like he was weird about her, but you know. So I'm just like, why are we so attached to these 40 minutes of Claudia that even then the way that we people want to depict it is not accurate to what she actually experienced. And I
Yeah.
feel that it's not fair to her
Mm-hmm.
being so resistant to being honest about what it actually was for her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it comes down to just like you're still infantilized, and like why do I see like toddler Claudia all the time?
Oh, that pisses
I
me
thought it
off
was
so
cute a
bad.
couple of times, but the fact that I see it so
I see it
much, I
so
see it
much, and I
more.
see more. Like I don't think I've seen anyone draw Claudia as an adult.
Yeah, I've seen more
But I've seen
like
people more,
de-aging
yeah,
her
drawing her as like an actual
than
baby.
her being like showing her as an adult. And I'm
Yeah,
like, that's crazy.
yeah.
That's crazy. This is
Especially
literally
because she spends more of the show as an adult than she does as a child.
and this is literally what she's like the main point of contention for her, and this is what
Yeah.
y'all are so attached to
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like in favor of Claudia. It's
Because
not for
also a
Claudia.
baby doesn't have a personality, if we're
Mm.
being honest.
Mm-hmm.
You can project a lot onto a baby.
And that is exactly what happens.
Yeah, which is they're able to just project whatever they want onto that situation without having to deal with the
Cutesy domestics.
well, yeah, without having to deal with the undesirable, the ickiness of Claudia and her own opinions.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was thinking about is when it comes to Claudia, how it seems like the only because I was thinking about like her first introduction to sexuality on the Lover's Lane, but that's as a spectator. But all of her personal experiences with like sexuality are all violent.
Yeah, all very traumatizing.
Yeah. So we have all like her talking about these experiences. We have one brief one with like Charlie that's very like just making out, honestly. That ends obviously poorly.
Again, traumatizing.
Traumatizing. And then we have her in the next episode when she's talking about like, so what's it gonna look like for me? Is it just gonna be little boys or perverts? Is that what I'm supposed to do? And then she's like mentions, you know, the uncle at the rooming house, that thing, and then we see her go out and face sexual violence, and then when she comes back she's threatened with sexual violence, and it's just that's really all that's thrown at her. And I think that is a very important intersection of her race and her gender
Mm-hmm.
in conjunction with her age. But
100%.
it's like exacerbated because of what you can get away with a child.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that children are an oppressed class,
Mm-hmm.
they're inherently less empowered than adults, and so people feel like they feel that they can exert power over children, and sexual violence is all about power.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very little to do with sexual
Mm-hmm.
attraction or actual desire. It's all about power.
And that's extremely real, because when you think about how Bruce even like sought her out,
Mm-hmm.
and how his like inclination was like, I want to like teach you how to be a woman. Here's this book for you to like learn how to be a proper lady, like trying to like groom her into something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, hello?
Yeah, and then punishing her when she doesn't behave the way that he wants her to behave.
Yeah.
And then acting like her being sexually available is just being a good host.
Yeah.
I want
Disgusting.
something, so you have to give it to me.
Oh, you can go. Oh, you can die. Literally, I'm getting so pissed right now.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's literally so horrifying.
It's awful. And then we see, like, it's just this thing and it's, I think when we get to that moment in season 2 when, Louis asks her if her situation with Madeline is romantic or not, and they both say no. And with the possibility of maybe it being romantic later on, it's like probably it's like actually most likely the first time that it's ever been like, this is a conversation we can have about what this is going to look like,
Mm-hmm.
because she's been put in a horrible situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's in a horrible situation
Yeah.
where it's just like any type of sexual desire for her, with her history, which has all this trauma, but also with her body, which is so loaded.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes her, that is also a part of a search for companionship. She also wants romantic companionship. We see
Yeah.
her trying to find
Yeah,
a
that was-
boyfriend
yeah.
all of episode 5.
Yeah.
She kills like 50 something people and tries to turn a bunch of boys, and it doesn't work.
Speaking of, since we are getting to that,
Oh yeah.
we can let Claudia be bisexual, guys.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't take away from her queerness, unlike what people believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that since we are talking about this now, like, and we briefly already talked about, you briefly like brought up Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to acknowledge how important Charlie was
Yes.
to her. And trying to minimize it is really weird. Like, it really changed. It was a moment that really like changed a lot for her. She like self-harms after that.
Mm-hmm.
And it really changed how she like started to like viewing like people, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like, we can acknowledge how important
Yeah,
he is.
he's extremely important, and I want to get into that. I'm trying to remember what my last thought was.
Oh, I'm
gonna
so
be.
sorry.
No, you're good. But it's just like, yeah, there is all this loaded likeness with like her desiring sexuality and her
Mhm.
desiring that sort of companionship because of the way she has been made.
Mhm.
And um I think there's also, it's so tricky because I feel like there's a discomfort in the fandom with talking about her,
Yeah.
even though like she is an adult,
Yeah.
but she does have this body,
Yeah.
and so there's kind of like a factor to it, but it's like that's just her life.
Mhm.
That's just it's just what she is.
Yeah.
Like, and to kind of like make it, I think, I feel like the way a lot of people, even though there is an extremely horny scene with her and Madeline, people don't really talk about her in the context of sexual desire very often because of their own discomfort with her situation, even though that is something she experiences.
Mhm.
And it's just all this like fraught stuff all in this ball. And I think it has to do, like, one could interpret it as discomfort with women's sexuality, discomfort with a black woman's sexuality, wanting to push her into one box or another, and like just this horrible like Rubik's cube, this puzzle box.
There's a lot of layers.
There's a lot of layers to it. But yeah, when it comes to Charlie, and Charlie being something that she gets to choose for herself.
Yes.
Because that's what Charlie is for her.
Yes.
He's something she gets to have that's hers, that wasn't given to her by Louis or Lestat. She found him.
I know. When Louis tries to pry, she's like, "Can you mind your business?"
That's when she learns to block him out.
I know. She's like, "Mind your fucking business, please.
Yeah.
Thank you."
This is your father speaking.
This is your father speaking.
You always make him sound like he's from like an old-timey New Yorker.
That's what he sounds like.
Hey, right, I'm walking here. Like... This is your father speaking.
I can't do accents like Jacob Anderson. I'm not Jacob Anderson, okay?
It's fine.
He has the skill, not me.
Yeah. But yeah, that like that, and then Charlie also being someone from the same class as her, who grew up in the same neighborhood as her, who's the same race as her.
Yes.
And like being able to
like that's the first time.
Yeah.
And also like even beyond like the fact that, you know, that's her first crush, but like actual community, because she's been stuck in that house and unable to make any kind of real connection with anyone, and now she's like finally making connection with someone who's like the same, like you said, same age, race, from the same class, same neighborhood, and that's really important.
Also kind of because that neighborhood got burned down. So it's like sad. Being able to connect with somebody, and then because she wasn't taught how to control herself, because Lestat didn't think it was an important thing to teach her.
Even though he was like, I'm going to take you up to Lover's Lane, but after this, I'm not going to explain anything.
But like the thing is, he takes her up to Lover's Lane, kind of is like, how do you not know about sex?
I'm like...
And then when he reads her diary, seems disgusted at the idea that she's exploring sexuality.
Yeah. Like, so what is it?
It's all of it.
Like...
It's the paradox of this situation. But yeah, and so then she overindulges. Because she's young.
She doesn't even know that. She doesn't even realize, and it's
very sad. And then, instead of, one of her parents meets her with sympathy, but the other one just not.
Yeah.
None at all.
That was the first time I was, like, literally so taken aback. Like, Lisa already does some shit that annoys me before, but, like, that's the first time I was like, oh my God, this is kind of scary. This is terrifying. Because there's just something very violent about that too.
Oh yeah.
It was, I don't know, it's hard to watch, because like she's already grieving, and she doesn't really understand. She's trying to understand, and like she's like, well, can't you like bring him back, like, and that's not the proper response. No, to basically being like, okay, now watch him burn.
Yeah, well, to be like, tough luck. Well, clean up now.
Like, what? Hello? Like,
yeah, it's like, sucks to be you. Well,
oh my God,
get over it.
Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's really,
it's again that yes, to empathize with her.
Yeah, because like one could draw a parallel to Nikki, but Lestat is like, you should feel bad about this. So
like, or you could be a parent and parent.
No, why would he do that? But yeah, and then after that, when we were talking about like how she sees the world, but then it's also like I was thinking a lot about how she sees herself, like at the end of that episode when she kind of like itemizes herself, like the things that are wrong with her body. And then the next episode, we see her killing a bunch of people and dismembering them and taking parts of their bodies and keeping it. And it's almost like the way that she has broken her body down into parts, she's now breaking other people's bodies down into parts, and like this processing and just thinking about the things that she's keeping, and like whatever she kept a woman's breast in her clothing drawer. Like
that's not saying something.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like, it's in my opinion their version of the thing in the movie when like Claudia underneath all of her dolls keeps the body of a woman, where it's just like this is the thing she can't have, and so she's keeping them, or like she's breaking them down, and she's like, you know, she's struggling, she's going through this horrible like mental breakdown that nobody wants to treat seriously, or as seriously as it should be treated. I think Louis is sympathetic, but he doesn't fully understand what he can't understand what she's going through. And there's nothing more like grating than when you're going through something and someone's like, I know how you feel, and you know for a fact that they don't. Or when someone's just like, I'm here for you, and it's like, to do what? What can you do being here for me? Are you going to make me spontaneously age 5 years? You can't. And then she has that conversation where she's like, why did you do this? You could have taken me to the hospital. You could have taken me anywhere else. And Louis like, I panicked. I panicked, and I thought the one place, like the one thing I could do.
Save you at least, and I'm like,
yeah. And it's like that's one of the ways in which like Louis will make decisions for Claudia that are well-meaning, but fuck her up worse than anyone else in the situation.
Yeah.
Like, yes, she's not dead, which is good.
Yeah.
But look at what the life she's living now. The things she doesn't get to have. The choices she'll never get to make because you made a choice for her. Like, it's out of her hands.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, to tie to season 2 a little bit, when she's talking to Madeline in the shop and she's just like, never thought about like getting to pretend. Or like, you know, getting to choose to pretend. Like she's just like, I've had to spend my whole, like, that's a choice that's been made for me. I don't have the luxury of deciding, am I gonna lie today? It's like, she has to, because what's she gonna do? Go up to someone and be like, I'm 36 years old.
Yeah.
She's gonna they're gonna think she's insane.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Man, I'd be feeling her on that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Claudia, I get you. Oh my god. Yeah. But also, I think, and that also makes me think about like her movement in the world and how she is able or unable to move in the world.
Yeah.
And how that intersects with both, you know, her race, the perceived age that people perceive her as, and obviously like being a woman as well. Like even I think back to like, you know, even on the train.
Yeah.
And how, you know, she has to like sit in, you know, in the back hidden to be able just to try to travel, and restricted by like, you know, the social order of like the time, and then also restricted by Lestat as well,
and also restricted because she's a vampire.
That's that once again
Lestat did that.
She didn't sign up for it. She didn't choose. It's like it's very weird.
Because, like, you know, that scene where, like, Louis is talking about it, and he's like, she more than anyone deserved to, like, have a nice seat by the window. But, like, she's a vampire on top of
And
everything
again,
else.
also the fact that she looks so young as well. Like, they're gonna be like,
where are your parents?
where are your parents? Why is this young black girl like traveling around by her? Like, literally, especially during that time, like, impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's, you know, I said this already in the Louis episode, but it's like, you know, people talk about the lack of metaphor is striking, but like the metaphor here is like right, it's there and it's potent. And yeah, like you said, like Lestat literally restricting her movement because like part of the reason why she has to kill him is because he won't let her go.
He won't let her go.
Listen. She's like, she doesn't want to be there. She's stagnating there. It's bad for her there. It's an abusive household. But she's also not allowed to leave, even though she left the first time. But when she tries to leave again, I would say Lestat is self-aware enough to know that he is not enough for Louis. And so his solution, instead of being a better person, is I'll get the thing that he wants back. Yeah. Because obviously it's not enough for me to be here anymore. Well,
try being black. No, I'm kidding. No, don't do that. I don't need to see him walk around in
that awful picture you send me. The picture you send me to give me psychic damage of him with braids, with box braids. That makes me want to die.
Yep. Curse. I've never done anything to them ever in my life. I'm like the best friend that they could ever have, and they're like, "Wow, Amari's so like
I smacked my
gracious
microphone
all the time, and never tries to, you know, send evil images,
cursed images. I'm sure all the spiders in my home are because of the pictures you've sent me. They've manifested evil in my house."
Anyways.
It has nothing to do with me living by a lake.
Anyways.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, like, and so him dragging her back and being like, you're not allowed to leave because we're not done playing house. Yeah. And her being like, Louis, we gotta kill this guy. Louis, we gotta kill this guy.
He threatened me. Drag me back.
Just like this whole thing of being like, we gotta kill him. Yeah. He's trapping us here. We're not happy. Yeah. We're not.
And the thing that is so wild to me is that, you know, she's like, well, we gotta kill him. And then he's like, well, I'm just gonna kill Claudia. When he could just let her go. Like, if you had just let her go from the very beginning, none of this you wouldn't, like...
He can't let her go.
I know, but he's like, I'm going to replace... in the last episode... Yeah. He tries to replace her with Antoinette. And I'm like, if you had just, like, let her go, instead of trying to, like... continue to, like...
But if he lets her go, he has to let Louis go, too. And he's not going to do that.
Well... Too bad for him.
Yeah, I mean, like, that issue gets forced.
And you got Antoinette now. Be happy.
He doesn't want her.
You apparently think that she can be the new sister daughter, so...
Well, he thinks that... Well, I was going to say that's kind of evil.
I don't know what you're about to say. But yeah, you know, it's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's too damn
He's like,
bad.
I'm not staying here with just this lady. I don't even like her.
Well...
That's your fault for choosing a mistress you don't like. Choose a mistress you do like next time.
Why her around?
Yeah.
Like, damn, whose fault is that? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? But yeah. But isn't it also interesting that he tries to replace Claudia with a white woman? Mm-hmm. He's like, this is going to be better for us. No, it's not.
In what way?
Louis literally wants community. He needs that black community. That's his daughter, and you're over here like, I want to bring in a white woman.
Yeah, because he's like, and I know what the issue was. I know what the problem was. I can fix this one.
Yeah.
Which is that I felt left out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then you should have courted
a white man. I was gonna say, you should have made friends.
Or that,
So, like, that whole thing of, like, him keeping her there, the fact that he sees her as disposable.
Yeah.
All of this, and, like, it's just, yeah.
He had to go.
He had to go. And, yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I have to say on that one.
Yeah, I mean, because there's more I could say on it, but again, I feel like it refers too much back to a trial.
Yeah.
Like, what else I would like to say? We're gonna talk about that.
That's why I keep starting to say something, being like, never mind.
For the trial.
Yeah. So we're just not saying the same things over and over again in that one.
For those who are, listening over and over again, thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, and so, like, there is this restricted movement, and part of it has to do with the fact that she, like we said, like, if she leaves, she has to take Louis with her, because we saw what happened when she tried to travel on her own. She needs another person there.
Mm-hmm.
She cannot make it on her own. I remember there being a conversation, actually, like, early on, of people being like, oh, it's easier for Claudia to travel in the show than the book because she's older, but the show literally shows us that no, it's not, because again, race is very important. Race is very important. Yeah. Race makes that a crucial factor.
That restricts your movement a lot.
Yeah, and so
especially back.
Yeah, and so when she comes back and she's like, I'm leaving, but with Louis, it's because she's aware that she needs that extra protection that Louis being there can afford her. But that's not going to happen. And if she were to just be let out on her own, like, if she can't form that community that Lestat makes so willy-nilly, where he just makes fledglings.
Yeah.
Because of the choice of when she was made, that we learn a little in season 2 that was a possibility, or like they knew that was going to happen, but Claudia doesn't know that was, she doesn't know that was a thing that happened for her.
Yeah.
So it's like, in that whole larger conversation of Louis making choices that are well-intentioned but have very bad side effects. That's one of them, where it's like, that is where a big part of her struggle for community comes from. She can't make it. She cannot make a community the way that they can. She's unable to make fledglings. And the fact that Louis also doesn't really tell her that that's an issue, where we see her expressing, like, I'm trying to make one, but it's just not working. What am I doing wrong? Like, in that scene where, like, we see all the bite marks on her arms from all the time she's tried to make vampires. And neither Louis nor Lestat are like, it's because you're not able to do that because of when you were made.
You think that after what happened with Charlie, they'd be like, let's have a chat about all these different things. But that doesn't happen.
No, because
it's still avoiding.
It's avoiding it.
The elephant in the room.
The disparity in power in the room.
That.
And, like, I was gonna say slight tangent, but I think I've been thinking about this recently. So this is why I'm tying it in, but I think a lot about how in the Vampire Chronicles in general, women don't really make fledglings. The women other than, like, Akasha, there's not a lot of women vampires with as many vampiric progeny as we see from the men, and so it's kind of like very patriarchal. Men are allowed to have this large legacy, and the women just kind of maybe have one, if that. And so we see it with Claudia, of, like, this inability to have a legacy, this inability to have more, this inability to build a community and a family that's restricted to her makers. And then we see her, of course, in season 2 having to convince someone to make a fledgling for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that sort of, like, power differential coming up again, because, like, whenever Lestat gets lonely, he just he waited a little bit after Nikki, and by a little bit, I mean he took a very long nap. So when he gets lonely, he just was like, "You want to be a vampire?"
I don't know why the tune of "Do you want to make a snow?" popped into my head.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, Jesus.
But yeah.
We're so
LOL.
in sync.
We're so in sync.
Like,
And maybe in our Armand episode, I'll talk a little bit about weird gender stuff with him and the fact that he never wants to make a fledgling.
Yeah.
A role typically delegated to the vampire women in the series. I'm always on the gender weird Armand train, so.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
He has his own reasons for being an antinatalist, anyway.
All three of them have, their little gender, interesting gender.
Oh my god, Claudia, the first assigned female at birth trans woman.
Yeah.
The first
I think we talk about that.
We do, for sure. We do talk about that when we get to season 2. But yeah.
Yeah.
Gender issues, this being locked out of womanhood that we do see her talk about in season 1.
Which, once again,
which also has to do with being black.
Race.
Yeah.
Circle back to race again. And
how gender is a white supremacist concept, and therefore being a person of color, especially a black person, makes it so you're unable to access these gender. I've also been reading a book that talks a lot about like race and gender in that sort of way, and like being degendered because of race. That will be very relevant when we get into the Armand episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, that experience and seeing that, I think that goes to do with like Louis as well, but we talked about him being locked out of gender by nature of being both a black and a gay man.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And then we see that also being locked out of gender for Claudia with they make it her age, but it's also tied to her race.
Yeah, it's all again interesting.
The only person who is able to occupy the space of their gender is Lestat, who is just very comfortable being a man and the man of the family, and that has to do with his race.
See my brow raised.
Yeah. They were raising their eyebrows. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much in season 1 already.
Oh my goodness.
So we're gonna turn it over to season 2.
Yeah, and so that kind of like sets up the situation for her heading into season 2, where she's dealing with all these things once again on her hunt for community. Having to put up with bullshit.
Restricted movement.
Oh my god, restricted
you see that
movement.
in the very first episode of season 2.
Yeah.
It all intersects, y'all.
It all intersects. So
we took a little break.
We also had to turn the heater on because it's so fucking cold.
Why is it in the 40s in Texas?
Yeah.
In April?
Yeah, it's cold. And we were trying to soldier like through it before, and it just got too cold, so it's on if you can hear it. I'm gonna try and like see if I can suppress it in post, but if not, you have to get over it because we're too cold.
Honestly, I'm pissed. It's just another thing.
Just one thing after another. Sorry, I don't know why I decided to go 10,000 miles away from my mic, but
yeah. So yeah, back into it.
Yeah, Claudia's the loneliest girl in the whole entire world. There is no one around who has the experience that she has specifically. I would say even if there's another child vampire, unless they're specifically like a black teenage girl, or even a black girl, like young girl vampire, they wouldn't get it the same way.
Exactly, because again,
it's a very specific experience. I also think from her time period and in the time period she's in.
Yeah, because I mean, if it was like modern day, it would be a lot different.
Yeah, or even like way further back.
Yeah.
Like she's in a specific spot. There's a specific context for her that she's coming from that I also think is why she wants so much independence and why she wants all of these things.
Yeah.
And then they go to Paris post-liberation of Paris, and they make all those comparisons between Paris being liberated and them being liberated and all this stuff, but Claudia is still not fully present. Because
what does that mean
shit's
for
fucked.
her? It's still like
yeah. She says, oh my god, I love the dialogue that we hear from her diary before she finds Madeleine's dress shop. It's just so noir.
Yeah.
When she's just like, what if I want to be joyfully joyless? And I'm like, I'm kissing you on the forehead.
I'm adding that to my phrases.
Yeah. And she's like talking about how like she's resentful of the fact that Louis's happiness depends on her. Because what if she wants to be fucking miserable?
Yeah.
But she can't be because Louis needs her to be happy for him to be happy. And so she can't even process her own emotions on her own without having to consider how it affects Louis as well. And she just wants to be selfish.
And isn't that, once again, coming back to like this, you know, parental and child dynamic? Because even though they both agreed, yeah, we're siblings.
They're not. They're not.
Because, gosh, like, your mom calls you, she has, and your parents very much like, you know, want you to be happy or whatever, and like, you know, this is why sometimes you won't go to them for certain things, because you know that's gonna be like so upsetting, and you know you don't want to feel like a burden, or you don't want, and you want to be able to just live your own life without having to worry about what someone else is thinking or what someone else is feeling because of the actions that you choose.
Also gonna say like that specific thing with her specific situation of her having a parent who's a victim of domestic violence, and also her having a parent who's mentally ill. That it's like
that's a whole
there's
nother
these
layer.
eggshells she's walking on the whole time of like,
because even they mention that like she pulls, like whenever they have their little argument.
Oh yeah,
Delaney,
like, so that she makes a very clear thing that if they're fighting, she's not in his face.
Yeah,
she's far away.
And the fact that she has to like think about these kinds of things
when like those considerations are never taken for her.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think a lot of that has to do with like she's trying, even when she's fucking pissed with Louis, she's also trying not to trigger him.
Yeah.
Because she has to keep that in. And I'm not saying that you know she should purposefully. I'm just saying like it's those extra things of being like, I'm very aware that this is something my parent has dealt with. I'm also very aware that these are like they struggle with this because Louis, you know, is prone to depression and melancholy.
Like, you know, I'm like getting all emotional real quick because I'm like, God. And I feel like that's just like they really do love each other, but also there's still a lot of struggle even between
it's
one of
difficult.
the one relationships here that's like there's actual like real love that's not dependent on anything.
It's very I was gonna say it's like selfless, but it's not transactional. It's not rooted in expectation.
Yeah,
which I think is every other relationship we see. Either with Claudia or with Louis, there's a lot of conditions. There's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of like, if I do this for you, you have to do this for me, type energy. But with Louis and Claudia, it's like we're here with each other because who else do we have? We have to be we have to be here for each other because no one else has our back.
Yeah,
and so there comes with a lot of like looking over or having to ignore resentment. I would say specifically on Claudia's part.
Yeah.
When it comes to Louis of like, it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. It's better than everything else.
Which is why at the end of the first episode in season 2, even though she's still upset, she's like, I'm going to take this olive branch because I'm hoping that this is actually going to work. Because like she wants it to. Like she wants it to. It's just
there's so much baggage, and I think one of the things she was looking for was like, I want someone else.
Yeah.
But then they keep looking and they keep finding no one. And then they have that fucking amazing monologue that Jacob gives in the back of the caravan where he is like, you've got to stop setting yourself up to be disappointed, basically. And then he's like, but also, I'm here for you. And he's like, even if we don't find anyone else, I am here for you. And it's going to be both of us against the world. And that's really all she wants to hear.
Yeah.
Is that someone is choosing her and that it's going to be them. And that's why she gets so angry.
Yeah.
In episode 4 when like Louis doesn't take her side when she tells him, well, also when she learns that Louis just straight up told Armand that they killed Lestat.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, what the fuck? We spent so long rehearsing this. We spent it also because you were paranoid. We came up with a story.
Yeah.
For you to what? Throw it all away in a couple of months. You're not even with the Coven. You just hang out with one of the guys from the Coven. I'm there 24/7 holding this shit down. You go to lunch with the guy and you spill the beans and you put me in danger because now I have agreed to the laws of the Coven. So I'm the one who's held responsible for that shit when you tell.
Yeah.
And then Louis being like, and he's like, well, it's not gonna be an issue. And she's like, well, he just threatened me. And Louis being like, doesn't sound like him. And she's just, the look on her face when she's just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Because she's like, he didn't take my side. He should have believed me. Because it's true. But also, like, he knows her. He's supposed to be taking her side no matter what.
Yeah, that's what we started.
That's
the
you and me and me and you. What happened to that?
Yeah, ugh, it's so sad. They hurt me so bad.
Yeah,
they hurt
the way that
in such a certain way because even though like this is the most genuine love, it still gets messed up. And I'm like, so tragic.
Because like the issue is like no matter how much you love someone, that doesn't stop you from being able to hurt them. In fact, it makes it easier.
Exactly.
Because you know, it also just proximity. The longer you're with somebody, the higher the statistical probability goes up. But also like,
well, also
that history.
It's that like you develop like whatever kind of like relationship with someone. It's so much easier to be hurt by them because you trust them.
You trust them. It's if you didn't care, it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
But because you care, it hurts way more.
Yeah.
And it actually can, I think, in my opinion, make it harder to forgive because you feel like they should know better.
Yeah.
And then they did it anyway. And I think at that point, Claudia's sick of having to make allowances for this. Like, having to be like, well, like, she's just like, just get your shit together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to be like, whether it's fair or not, but like, I do think it's fair for her to be like, can you get it together when it comes to me at the very least?
Yeah.
And the answer is no. As best he tries the best he can.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be blind spots because, you know, you're just a person.
Yeah.
And they're in less than ideal circumstances. And they don't have perfect options. So there's always going to be.
Yeah, there's no perfect situation for them.
No.
Really not.
Bites my microphone. I was like, ah.
Oh God, they hurt me so bad.
With that same thing, when like she's trying to figure out what she wants and like what she wants to be outside of Louis and how to have her own life without having to consider him in it, she kind of poses that question to him in the cafe, which I think
really, like for both of them.
Yeah, I think she's trying to free both of them because she's like, Louis is being stunted. I think we're both being restricted by having our lives be this small. So when she says to him, like, who are you outside of me? That's also her trying to get herself to be like, not. If he defines himself by who he is to her, she also has to consider, she has to define herself by who she is to him, or she has to define herself by who he is to her.
Yeah.
By that definition. And so her trying to be like, find something outside of me so that I can find something outside of you.
Yeah.
And I don't have to feel bad about it, like I'm abandoning you.
Yeah.
And so that whole thing, that whole question, and I think the fact that it's like so close to the conversation where like it's like talking about like what a woman is, and she's like kind of annoyed by having a definition, because I think also she's struggling with what the definition of what a woman is, especially what does a woman look like for her?
Yeah, what does
she's
that
like,
look
yeah,
for her?
what does a woman mean to me?
Yeah.
As someone who is not
The
fully
gender.
Claudia being, what was it? I said she's the first assigned female at birth trans woman.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a metaphor for how like a lot of, like Black women aren't allowed to have the full breadth of femininity.
Yeah.
Like they're not
womanhood,
awarded
because
women like the same type of womanhood that white women are.
Yeah.
They're kept outside of it. And so she's never fully able to embody the role or like experience of a woman.
And again, that's where like the fact that she also has no community around her that, you know, that are representative of what Black womanhood could look like. There's nothing else for her to even like really reference or look to either. Yeah.
And so she's having to make it up, no pun intended, whole cloth.
Yeah.
Basically having to have dresses made to fit her so that she can see herself the way that she wants to be seen.
Yes.
And then that's taken from her with that stupid fucking performance. And I do think it's very telling. Okay, so like in the original book, Madeline is a doll maker. And instead of making dolls for Claudia, makes everything in her house or in her room Claudia sized. So when there's a part where Louis talks about entering into Claudia's room and feeling like a weird, like fun house effect because everything is, all the furniture is small because it's supposed to make Claudia feel like she's quote unquote adult sized.
Yeah.
And in this one, Madeline is a dressmaker. So it's less about like making this space where Claudia feels, you know, more comfortable, but it's like helping Claudia form the appearance and helping her with her expression and how she moves through the world. And yeah, I just think that's really like it's a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? It has a lot more to do, in my opinion, with like self-actualization of being like, I'm making myself look the way I want.
Which when we, you know, I've always, obviously everyone has recognized that like the whole like baby Lou thing and Armand forcing her to wear that dress is like fucked up. But putting into words like this is just like even more like reasserting how awful this was, because she just finally, you know, got all these dresses that are like her size, and she's like really like getting to finally express herself, and then all of a sudden,
and also she's not allowed to talk to her. But also we see that like when she's having that conversation with Santiago, and Santiago's like, we all break the rules, but only Claudia is being punished for it.
Yeah. And he's pretending to care about her. Fuck off.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, fuck well, obviously fuck Santiago. We hate Santiago. Yeah, that guy sucks. Yeah, we hate him.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. But yeah, but also I think like that was also very purposeful when he's like, well, we all break the rules, to make her break the rules so she gets in trouble.
Setting her up.
But yeah, the fact that everybody there's like that scene in episode 4 where like Romain is telling Armand everyone who's breaking the rules, and Armand is just like, ugh. But like he's not doing to them what he is currently doing to Claudia, just because Claudia's like doesn't do a good performance.
I know.
And he punishes her so harshly for it. And it's like so purposeful. And the fact that like they gave her this idea that it was going to be a freeing experience being a vampire in this coven, and she has this moment of community when they go to the murder mansion and kill everybody in that like hunt. But then when it comes down to it, she says to Armand in that same episode that she doesn't have any friends. Like, they haven't made an effort to connect with her. And so she joined this coven to be a part of this new family, but none of them talk to her. None of them spend time with her. None of them are actually like trying to make her feel like she's actually a member of the coven.
Yeah.
And how
She's
alienating that is. Yeah.
Just still isolated, still alienated. Like, nothing has really changed.
Yeah. And then the whole time she's been there, every night she has to pretend to be a baby and kill herself. Which, Jesus.
The play.
The play.
You know what? Fuck all these. Fuck all of them. God. Because that play is so fucked up.
But I do want to say one last thing.
Go ahead.
We're going to move into this. But I think when we were talking about, like, another element of, like, the lack of empathizing with Claudia, like, it's the fact that Claudia also speaks out against what she's experiencing. Because when she's talking about, she's like, I hate this fucking job and I don't want to do it. And Armand is like, you have to get over yourself. It doesn't matter that you don't like it. It's only 15 minutes a night. Fucking suck it up and get over it. And she's like, I don't want to. I shouldn't have to put myself through that indignity.
Yeah.
Just for what? Like, I don't want to do it. And the fact that in his mind that she has the audacity to speak against her coven master in that way when he didn't. Because, he didn't feel like he had the right, so why should she feel like she has the right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, because she does have the right. And also, you had the right, but you shouldn't punish her for exercising her right. Like, that's not her fault.
And that's where we get into, like, these, like, same sides of two different coins with, like, Armand and Lestat.
Yes.
But both punishing Claudia for doing rather, like, but Armand should have been able to not like victim, not like blaming him,
but him seeing her do something that he didn't feel like he had the right to do, and being like, "Where the fuck do you think you get off?"
Yes,
and then on the same side of her with Lestat doing things that he does do, and him being like, "Where the fuck do you think you get off?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. These men.
Yeah. And that play, to get into the play, because that fucking play. Oof.
Let me just take a little sip.
A little sip of Celsius specifically, not of like alcohol.
Yeah, but it's 11 p.m. right now.
And I'm 11 p.m.?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we should take a shot every single time we say whale.
Whale. Yeah, so like, let's get into it. We all know the play is fucking weird.
Hey, do you guys know the play is fucking weird? Because I see enough people like, draw or like dress up in the costume or do stuff with it that I'm like, hey, this is borderline minstrel shit they have Claudia doing.
Especially if you're non-black. I mean, like, I don't love it either way, but like, at least if you're black, like, you can do whatever you want. But like, if you're not black, it's extremely weird, and then you are getting into like weird minstrel things.
Yeah. But anyway, that whole deal, that whole play, I remember, so I was the one who did the review on our website for that episode. If you want, you can go on our website, twogothinacofin.com, and read it. But when the whole time, but I remember watching it and being like, this is dark-sided.
It really is. Man, everyone pissed me off.
Oh yeah, we rewatched it to remember, to refresh, and just the Armand looking over at Louis, that stupid fucking grin.
Like, I'm about to smack you in the back of the fucking head. He's making
a little colon D face the whole time, like,
go to hell.
Yeah, but I'm really curious about that play, because there's elements of it that are very pointed for Claudia's trauma. There's elements of it that are very pointed for Louis' trauma.
Yes.
The birds. I'll get into the birds a little later because I don't want to get into my bird tangent now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that like her leg is pinned and we know her leg was broken.
I know.
When she was being assaulted by Bruce, and then when she jumps out a window and hits the pavement like Paul.
Yeah.
And there's also this like hovering neglectful parent that to me almost feels like they're trying to make it a stand-in for Louis, who's just like leaving his kid to do bullshit and then, you know, get in trouble and kill herself. And they have to be the beleaguered nurse who's taking care of his wayward kid.
Yeah, they got real weird. Yeah.
But like, I don't know. There's weirdness here in these here parts. And considering the play was written by Samuel Barclay. Sorry, not Sam Beckett, not the real Irish playwright Samuel Beckett, but the fake playwright on the show, Samuel Barclay Beckett.
Oh.
But anyway, all that to say, like, there's a lot of really pointed things there, and the fact that Armand says in the previous episode that Claudia is eventually going to kill herself because there's no way to last in this type of existence the way that she is, and then basically makes her kill herself over and over again every single night. I think an ploy to try and make her kill herself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work because Claudia is just like I'm not no. It's not enough.
Yeah.
She's been through so much already. You think a stupid play is gonna get her?
I know. Like, oh my god.
And then punishes her for being upset about it, and then I think it does something to even push her even further, which is you think it's hard for 15 minutes a night? Do it every single night.
Every single night. Oh, okay. I thought you were about to say, and then like isolates her more.
Yeah,
because
it isolates her more because now she's walking on the streets just like a fucking clown, just like a baby doll.
That, and then after he finds out that she's like hanging out with Madeline, he's like, "You're not allowed to see her."
Well, she wasn't allowed to see her when she went, and then even further, he's just like, if you see her again, he basically threatens her with being like, "I know what you did, and it is my right as the Coven Master to punish you for it. I might just do that if you continue to do the things I told you not to do." And she's like, "Kill yourself." She's like, absolutely not. And now she's immediately like, fuck this, I gotta do something about it.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, Claudia is so kind, because when she does want to turn Madeline, she goes about it the right way.
Yeah.
She goes about it through the proper channels. She asks Armand, the guy who's supposed to either okay it or do it, if it's okay, and he goes, no.
Like, damn, come on, man. Like, what the fuck?
And even if it was, because I know his whole deal with not wanting to make vampires, but even not okaying it.
Yeah.
Because he's okayed vampires being made before. Obviously. But with this one, he's like, no, because he doesn't want Claudia to have anybody. He wants to continue isolating her so that it continues to be hard. And then punishing her for having the audacity to ask him for something like that. And also because, it's to go and then, like, to have her and then leave. And then it's always going to be a part of Louis' life is out there. He's not going to fully be with him. And if, I don't know, it's Armand.
Shaking my head to try to scream.
Yeah.
But I also want to like get back really briefly back to the play because like that show was anti-Black. It was weird as fuck. Infantilizing her, what she's had to deal with her whole fucking life, and making it a constant in her life. But then also, which we can get even more into when we discuss the trial, because this reoccurs in the trial again, but like the audience participation.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And the fact that they wear the little costumes and they're singing along.
And this is like to like Black pain.
Yeah,
like,
and the person who's like trying to get the blood in her mouth.
Yeah, weird as fuck.
Weird as fuck.
By the way,
Yeah.
like
What's
you're a
wrong
freak,
with
but you
you?
know what? I don't think in a good way.
No.
Yeah, and like for me, it just reminds me of like real life situations of how folks will like capitalize even off of Black pain and memify it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically what they did, like dressing up in the little, you know, their little outfits or whatever. It felt like they were belittling it.
There's so
Meanwhile,
many,
Claudia, not even just like, you know, in the play itself, but Claudia herself was like suffering and like having to deal with this. And, you know, the audience, they don't give a fuck.
Well, also, like, the audience, there is such a... There is something there, in my opinion, about, like, being given permission to behave that way. Because for them, it's fake, right?
Yeah, for them, they're just like...
This is fake. So, like... And also, in a way, it is fake. She is playing. The suicide is very cartoonishly done.
Yes.
But, like, it's fake. And they do a whole thing with the whole, like, play where it's just like all the layers of artifice there, where even the fact that they have projections and how like being given permission to just do that with no consequences.
Yes,
because that's what happens in the trial, and we'll get to that in the trial when we talk about it. But like I think we had a normal conversation about this on our own time about it, that I was like, it kind of feels like to a much more horrible extent, like when you go to the Ren Fair and they give you your night, and so then you start rooting for them to murder the other person on the field, and how quickly it goes to people screaming, kill him, murder, bloodshed. Because once you've been given permission to like cheer on violence, an audience really goes for it. It doesn't take long for the mob mentality to kick in, but it's who they're inviting the mob mentality towards.
Yes.
And who because they do it for them to cheer on Claudia killing herself in that scene, and then when they have it for them to cheer on, you know, Claudia getting sentenced to death in the trial. Like it's them encouraging that.
And in that play, like she's supposed to be like a little girl in the play. So they're just like, cheering on the death of like a Black child. Like hello?
Because it's like, oh, it's absurd and and we're gonna think it's haha funny, and we're all gonna cheer for her to jump out the window, and we're all gonna laugh and clap when she dies.
Yeah.
And it's like the way that they're the theater, the company themselves are encouraging this desensitization towards Black pain.
Yes.
And specifically, like,
and considering what happens in a trial, like it's like this build
especially when
it's part of it. I feel like that's part of it. They've been desensitized, and so
on purpose, so that when they get to the trial, they've been cheering on Claudia's death for 2.5 years.
Yeah. I just got really pissed off, y'all, again.
Yeah.
When I think about
it. And I remember being so pumped for this, like when the theater was first introduced, about like when they have Ben Daniels as Santiago break the fourth wall and look into the camera and basically saying like, you're complicit in what happens next. Because there is like, I think, a very meta conversation to be like, are we the audience complicit in the violence that happens on screen? If it's made for our entertainment, then are we responsible for it?
And that's another thing that I actually was gonna like even like mention, because I think we've talked about this before, because like a lot of these things we've talked about, but they are related, just that now we're breaking it down per character.
Yeah.
But like, because I think we did mention it in the racism and the fandom video, how folks react to Claudia's pain in that train scene, and how people are so quick to be like, but that's so cunty, blah blah blah, and things joke. And meanwhile, like I mentioned today, that was horrifying for me, and it's not funny. Yeah, because he said it in a little like, I don't know, he said it in a way, and everyone's like, wow, so hilarious. But I'm like, are you watching this right now?
Yeah, just because you did a little pirouette into the train car, suddenly it's supposed to be funny, but it's not. Yeah.
And we get that again of that the audience reaction
Mhm.
to these things, to these very violent things, because that was a
Mhm.
very violent scene.
Mhm.
There may have been no physical violence, but it was incredibly violent.
Oh
But
yeah. Well,
yeah.
there was physical violence not towards her, but the fact that there was a violence by proxy was a
Yes,
threat.
and yes, exactly.
Like, because there was horrible violence.
Yeah.
But it's just that it was.
We don't see it on screen,
We
though.
don't see it
That's
on
why I
screen.
say that.
We do see the decapitated head,
we
though,
see the
with him
aftermath.
doing the little like puppeteering with the mouth.
Go to hell. God. Ugh.
Oh my god. But yeah. It's like that's the thing. And so like I remember being so, because I really do love that type of conversation about like how responsible am I, the viewer,
Yeah.
for what plays on screen. Because if I turn the show off and it doesn't play, then it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I'm tuning in every week and I'm seeing it means that it's gonna happen, and it's because I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that, but also with the audience in the theater. So there's like layers of like meta commentary where it's like they wouldn't do any of this if that crowd didn't show up.
Yeah.
But the crowd showed up. And in fact, the crowd showed up in droves specifically to see Claudia get hurt.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't real.
Every single fucking night. They were doing that same fucking play.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
All these people can go to hell.
Yeah.
I'm so for real. I always say, I'm like, the Coffin, Santiago, Armand, Lestat, and the audience, y'all are all going to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, like we were saying, it's a desensitization, but I think it's a desensitization that is allowed to happen specifically because she is a Black girl.
Exactly. Because if it was a white girl, it would not be the same.
Yeah, they would have felt like it was more wrong.
Yeah.
But they don't care. And I think that also has to do with the adultification. She's not really seen as a child, even though she's a child.
Yeah. It's both.
Yeah.
She gets both infantilized and adultified at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's such, and we talked about it a little bit already, that like part of the reason why she joins the coven though is because she is very lonely, and she is given that promise at the very beginning, because when they're greeted by the coven, it's a very warm welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is super nice to them.
It was.
And they're invited to come back, and then they're invited to go on a hunt. And I think when Claudia talked to Louis about this, she's just like, for the first time ever, she sees vampires who kind of have similar values to her, and like, not to like blame Louis, but like Louis has a very specific view of being a vampire that is not the same as Claudia's, whereas Louis is really wrestling with the morality of it. Claudia doesn't really give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't get to choose to be a vampire. I think part of Louis's struggle comes from the fact that he did get the choice, and now he has to consider what that means. But Claudia didn't get a choice.
Nuanced choice. There was some nuance to how he got to make that choice, but there is still a
compared
big difference
to some of the other characters.
Yeah,
like,
there's still a big difference though.
It was just like, here's the thing, and he was like, it seemed good to him at the time, and so he does it. And now he's having to wrestle with what that means. Whereas Claudia didn't have any.
No one asked.
And so she's like, why should I have to consider anything with it? Because I didn't even get a choice.
Yeah. This is just who I am.
And so she wants to have pride in what she is without having to wring her hands over something that she didn't have a say in.
Yeah.
And she sees these people who like are joyfully like reveling in being vampires and tricking humans and seeing like, presenting themselves as being so much better than humanity. And she's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And then she joins and is instantly punished and instantly like, pushed to like the bottom of the hierarchy once again. She's made a baby. What is it? Santiago says you'll be their little bird for the next 50 years.
The birds.
Oh my God. Is it time for me to talk about the birds?
We're going to let Drew talk about the birds.
Wait, let me see. If I'm done talking about what I was talking about, to talk about the birds. Because I was saying she was very lonely. And so like we talked about this a little bit in our fandom episode too, about like why she makes the choice to join the coven in the first place, because like it does seem like maybe too close to Lestat and potentially dangerous, but it has to do with the fact that she is, once again, the loneliest girl in the whole entire world. And
There's
these
not a
people
lot
for
of
a while, yeah, they
options.
treat her like an equal until the minute they don't. And then she's stuck there once that's the case. And then once she finds Madeline and they start developing their relationship, she sees someone who doesn't talk down to her, really. I mean, they quip back and they snark at each other back and forth.
Yeah.
But like she doesn't pull her punches when she's talking to Claudia.
Yeah,
and Claudia
no, at
just
all.
serves it back and Madeline enjoys it. And then when they're having the conversation, I think in the dress shop where Claudia talks about how she has like this urge to just blow the fuck up, and Madeline's like, then do it.
Yeah.
And isn't being like, oh, well, you should do this, that, and the other. And she's just like, yeah, fucking blow up. Do it. Like, go for it. And then you'll get over it. And you just have to, you know, I guess factor in the fact that you're going to blow up sometimes. And that's just a part of what it is. Instead of being told like, instead of being treated like a child. And that's why she really wants that relationship, especially because Madeline is also the person who helps her present like an adult.
Yes.
Who isn't changing the designs, you know, well, let me make this more appropriate for a child. She gives Claudia what she wants.
Exactly.
What she asked for. And that's so important. And
getting back into the gender again.
Getting back into the gender again.
Putting on clothes that really make you feel affirmed.
Oh yeah, and we were talking a little bit about how like that moment of like sexual I don't want to specifically say exploration, but I guess like development when she like you see the menstrual blood dripping down Madeline's leg, and I think these things are tied together, right? Like it's an expression of like this is something that that I don't want to say adults because like now it happens to adolescents, but Claudia didn't get to experience this.
Yes. But it's a sign that your like body's developing or whatever, and you're puberty's hitting and you're growing into adulthood.
Yeah, and it's also a moment where like we see Claudia experience like erotic desire. And then I think it's very purposeful that then she looks in the mirror and she's dressed like a baby. And there's like this expression on her face where she looks really upset, like very sad, and like just kind of like all these mix of feelings of like things she's never going to experience, but also the messiness for her for many reasons of sexuality, because she is a victim of sexual violence while also having the body that she has. I think on top of also being Black and also being like a woman, like there's all of these like it's always going to be messy, very layered, very complicated. And I also think that's really great that when Louis like, is it romantic, and they both say no and Madeline says not yet, but it's also like she's giving Claudia the choice of whether or not it's going to be romantic.
Finally someone giving her choices,
because she's like, I'm open to it if she's open to it, but I'm also we're gonna allow this to develop together naturally, instead of me just saying if Claudia's not ready for it. Because I also feel like Claudia not wanting to bite Madeline is, of course, two things. It's the one that she can't really control herself when she starts to drink, but then also like that's very intimate, and Claudia is a little bit afraid, I think, of immediately jumping into this intimacy because it's not marked with good things for her. Because like, she had Charlie who she killed, and then she had that sexual violence at the hands of Bruce, and so that intimacy is very complicated for her. And just
that's what I do love about them. They actually give each other choices. Choices that, Claudia hasn't really gotten to have. They both give that to each other. Claudia giving, context before being like, you sure you actually want to become a vampire?
Yeah.
And then Madeline in turn with this, like,
yeah. So I think that's really great, and something I think is it's so great. And I do feel
she's been wanting.
Yeah, it's what she's been wanting, and I feel bad because there was this one. I think I had made a post about it that I was like, part of the tragedy of the Madeline and Claudia relationship is we don't get to see, because of how the story works, we don't get to see like how it develops. We don't even get to see if it would have worked out, because it might not have. They might have like crashed and burned, but they don't get the privilege to know if they would have even made it, because they aren't given the time.
It's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is very heartbreaking. But yeah. And then now that I've said what I was going to say about that.
Now the birds.
Now the birds. So at some point, I'm going to maybe I'll write something about it. Maybe I'll make a video. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to make a really long thing, fully encompassing it's a reoccurring metaphor throughout both the show and the books about birds being a metaphor for madness. We see it in the first episode of season 1, where Paul, he imagines himself being spoken to by birds that tell him things that he might not otherwise know. And then we see it with a couple times with Claudia. We already mentioned it when we said you're going to be their bird for 50 years, the next 50 years. We see it with
Armand tries to like drive
how
her mad.
in the play, she's made to believe she has delusions of being a bird. And so when she tries to fly, she ultimately is killing herself because of this delusion that she is a bird. We also see it because someone brought up the bird, but I have my own theories about the bird. Is in this first episode of season 2, when we see the bird fly out of Lestat's throat when Louis hallucinating him. Birds and madness. And then the first time with Claudia we see the birds is when Louis is filling her room in episode 5 of season 1 with birds with broken wings. And it's just this constant thing of like birds. And while she's having like her killing spree, we see Louis filling her room with birds with broken wings. And it's just this constant metaphor that comes up and again of like these people in this state of like emotional or mental destabilization and birds. And I'm just like, it comes up again and again. And there's a bunch of different examples from multiple things, but I remember I felt like that Charlie Day meme with the corkboard and the string when I was like, there's birds, it's birds everywhere. But yeah. So I don't know. I just really wanted to talk. I was like, it came up because I was like, the birds. It's the birds again. Man, I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also think it's like interesting, like just when it comes up, the people who enforce it. And I know like Louise is like a soft patriarchy, but it is still patriarchal. Because also she doesn't eat animals. Yeah. So he was imposing his diet on her.
I never really thought about that, to be honest. Because she don't want that.
Yeah, she's like, what the fuck are all these birds doing in my room?
Oh, Louis.
Yeah, but that's another, Louis being like, well, my morality says that I can't feed you what you actually eat, but I'll fill it with birds that you're not going to eat because you just got finished eating 2 people tonight.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby. Yeah, and then we see, like, Santiago being the next person and then the rest of the coven being with the birds and all that stuff. And then we also hear Lestat say that she'll get ripped to shreds by the other vampires because she's built like a bird.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
all these people trying to reinforce that for her.
Yeah.
I'm like, can y'all back up a little bit?
But yeah. And then I know this scene has to do with the dog, but then I'm also just like, go back in your cage, sweetheart. What do we do with birds? We put them in cages.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'm pretty sure like one of her diaries has a bird cage or something on it, but maybe I'm making it up.
I feel like there wasn't there?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure one of her diaries has either a bird cage or a bird in a cage.
Yeah. Which... literally a repeated motif.
Yeah. LOL.
Every single time I'm like, there's a bird. Bird mention.
Bird mention. Yeah. So that's my little bird bookend. But also, yeah, like those metaphors, I guess, because this paralleling, I guess, continuing of Claudia and Paul, of these two people, and
Yes.
that those threads connecting them, and they're both the two most important people to Louis.
Yes. I always say,
I always want to
yes.
bring it back home to
Always bring it back home.
to-
They are literally the center of the story.
Mhm.
No matter what everyone else might think, like, they are the center. This story revolves around them. It started with them and basically ends with Claudia.
Oh, another thing I want to talk about that we didn't write down that I just thought about is like the center of the story, because let me see if I can lead you down the path my brain just took, which is like the center of the story, even though when the story starts they're gone.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the absence of something speaks to the presence of it. And I was like, speaking of absence of stuff, the other thing that they impose upon Claudia is like, Claudia is really unique in the sense that she is the record keeper.
Mm-hmm.
She keeps diaries. She keeps very detailed diaries. Yes. And she's one of the only people who really, we have, like, to the day, like, what happened on this day. And, like, what she writes. Also because, like, with, I would say, white journalists, they take a written account as being more, having more veracity than a spoken account. Those, like, different, first, second, person accounts and whatever. So once that stops being written, we see Daniel kind of be like, if we can believe what's being said, because we don't have,
man, fuck that guy.
Because we don't have the corroboration from the diaries. But it's like, Claudia is really fascinating as like a timekeeper, but even with that, you have these people who are trying to control her narrative.
Yes.
By having pages removed, and like, we have Louis remove pages to protect Claudia because it's going to be looked at by someone else, and he's like, this is private.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Armand removing, well, he said that they removed them together, but like removing these pages to protect himself.
Mm-hmm.
But why does he feel he has the right to alter her diary?
Exactly. What's up with that?
But like, yeah, it's like, they removed, him saying that they removed them. He's like, to protect me. And I'm just like, to protect you from who?
I know.
What's going to happen? You're going to get arrested?
Yeah.
What consequences are you going to face that Louis doesn't already know about?
Exactly.
Like, you removed it because you felt that you had the right to alter her shit. Like, that's really what it is. And I had a whole post actually on my Tumblr. If you can find this, then I don't know, that's on you. Where I was talking about Claudia as a record keeper, whereas like you have Louis and Armand and Lestat who maybe can't remember things like to the day. And I remember talking a little bit about how there's like age discrepancies.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like a fucking nerd, then you're aware that people are, there is a argument about what day Louis was born and
Mm-hmm.
what year Louis was born and what year Louis was turned, because some sources, like, he'll say this and then we see the tombstone and it's slightly different, and it's not like significantly different. It's like within
just like normal,
a 2 or 3 age, like it's a 2 or 3 year difference, which isn't that crazy. And the same goes with like someone like Armand, who like frequently in the book, the vampire Armand, he's like, I don't remember what happened. Which like, how could he gets 514 years he's got to remember? I wouldn't remember what happened either.
Yeah.
And then the same goes with like, there's a bit in episode 7 of season 1 where Louis gives a date range and then Lestat gives a date range, and they're not the same for what his age would be.
Yeah.
And it's like, who the fuck can remember? But Claudia remembers. Claudia knows exactly how old she is because she can't forget. She will always remember exactly how old she is. And she keeps a record. And Claudia is essentially a timekeeper. And she is, despite being eternal, bound to time. Because time matters more to her than it does to these people who were turned when they were adults.
Mm-hmm.
like it doesn't really like. And there's also people talking about how old Armand was when he was turned because of different dates with the painting. But it's like, does it matter whether you were 27?
Yeah,
Or
because he's already
25,
he's already in his
or like
20s.
30. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It doesn't matter if you were turned when you were 31 or 33.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really matter. But it matters when you were turned when you were 14.
Exactly.
It fucking matters. And the fact that, like, we can keep track of time. Claudia is obsessed with time, and she's also obsessed with last words and all these records and these proof that you were there. And the only proof we have is her diaries. That's what's left. And so even like when she's gone, we have this proof of her time and this proof of her records that she meticulously kept until she decided it didn't matter anymore because she found someone that it wouldn't matter to.
Yeah.
And it's like, I love that bit about her as a character so much.
That's really good. It's a really good, really, I love that so much. But that also, you're talking about the journalist. And have we talked about, because we talked about all these other men in relationship to her.
I didn't talk about, why would I bring up Daniel?
Have you ever talked about Daniel?
No.
People have said before that they would be good friends. And I'm like, no, they fucking wouldn't.
She would kill that man.
Because he is also disrespectful of her.
Oh my God.
He treats her story like it's, well, one, like something to be commodified, but
because
then also,
it is to him. All of this is something to be commodified.
He's just trying to make a buck.
About any of it. I think that's the thing when people see Daniel as having any. I think the issue comes when people try and see Daniel as an audience surrogate because he isn't. He's his own person.
Exactly.
Who has his own point of view and has his own agenda. And it's not to be the surrogate for the audience. It's to get a story and make a lot of money. And we can kind of see who he is when he's turned, that he's a fucking dick.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't give a shit and he has $10 million and you can like fucking deal with it at this point. He doesn't care. And I think if it was any different, he would probably not be such a fucking abrasive asshole when he's turned about it. And like even maybe try and say it is fictional, but the fact that he's like, it's nonfiction, you can fucking like getting into an argument on air like an asshole. But yeah, then we see him when he was still human, and he feels entitled to seeing those pages because for some reason he won't just believe Louis that it happened, or for some reason he needs to have the lurid details of it. And the disrespectful way he talks about Claudia, where he compares her to a school shooter.
I know. I'm like, what the fuck?
And when he says, or like even when he sexualizes her himself by saying like she can inspire a line of sexy Claudia Halloween costumes. Yeah,
like why would you even bring that up?
And then he tries to like say, oh, it's because like when you put it out there, you can't control what it is.
Like, but that's not a metaphor you had to use. You didn't have to. You didn't have to liken it like that.
And it also like, it's just like you don't care. And he refers to her as like she's a gold mine, and she's the girl that moves 1 million books, and that's why he cares about
literally
her.
Every single moment he's like comparing her to a dollar sign for himself.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit about her. And I've said before, I'm like, Daniel doesn't really have, I think, strict morality. He cares about either seeming morally superior or just being contrarian for contrarianism's sake. Like whatever you say, he's gonna take the opposite stance. He doesn't care about any, like, this specifically about the people there. Do him and Louis kind of land on a nicer thing at the end? Sure,
but we talked about that before because he was involved. Like,
yeah, they shared a moment of victimhood by the same guy, and so now he's like, we're pals, right? And it's like, no, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
he was being. We see the the bit where like he starts making jokes, and Armand's just like, that was a really emotional, like a very vulnerable moment that Louis just shared with you, and you chose to turn it into a joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
My joking, like she said, she asked for no pickles. Moment from Armand where he's just like, it's fucking disgusting the way that you're disregarding her feelings about this when she chose to be vulnerable with you.
As he should. He needs to.
Yeah, he's gotta do something.
I know. God. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I think it is, it is really fucked up. And it just I brought it up because it just has me thinking about all the way that, like, because you also brought up Armand and how he tries to, like, cut out bits of Claudia's story, and it's just like how all these men interact with her story, her diaries. Even like, you know, when Sad and Louis were like going through her diaries when like that's private. Like there's just, and yeah, it was like parental, but like that doesn't make it any better.
Yeah.
But
can I even say that like whatever we get in the future of Lestat reflecting on Claudia is also him asserting his narrative over Claudia's story.
Ugh, I don't want to hear it.
I know, because like we have Claudia's account. We know how she felt about it. Anything he says is him trying to paint over what she's already said.
I hate. Do you remember when the fandom was trying to say that Claudia's diaries were like fake
she was lying in her own diaries?
Yeah,
I was like, for why? For what purpose would she be lying in her own diary?
And that's what I'm talking about. Also, like audience, how the audience reacts and treats Claudia as well. It's all tied together, and I'm just like,
either she is a hysterical child who is over exaggerating in order to make Lestat look bad, or she is a conniving demon who has this chess master who has made this whole elaborate thing in order to make Lestat look bad. And I'm like, how about you just accept the fact that he's bad?
Yeah.
And did a lot of fucked up shit. Because that's just the truth of it. We have so many accounts that corroborate it, but unfortunately, you know, for these people, they're not by any white people, so they're not going to take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all of these people.
Really, I think sick, like on all sides, whether it's like in real life from like fans, or it's like the characters that interact with her on the show. No one really like respects like. No one respects her, and I'm just.
We see Louis correct himself on it too. Yes. We're in the season 1 finale when he paints over what she actually said, and then when he remembers what actually did happen, we see him being very committed to trying to make sure that everything did happen accurately and not the way that he had been allowed to believe. Because
he's someone who actually like cares about her story.
Yeah, I think because like there was a story he had told himself that was easier, and he doesn't want it to be the easy version. He wants it to be what happened.
Because be honest.
Yeah, because I think for him, like part of it is like he wants clarity on this, because there's probably been parts that he's like, I don't that have at this point become murky and been allowed to become murky because it's easier for Armand if Louis has this different narrative that he's kind of like repeated to himself enough times that it's overwritten the truth. But now Louis like, I don't want that. And he chose this fucking asshole who's gonna, chase him down every corner so that he can find, when to a hammer everything looks like a nail. Sometimes it is a nail, and that's useful. But yeah, being able to like face it with someone who isn't invested in Louis having a very specific version of the story, because Armand is very invested in Louis having a very specific version of the story. So just like getting fresh eyes on it. Sometimes you tell yourself something enough times that you can forget that that's not actually what happened.
Yeah. Like
if she's like, I wish this was the case, and so you just start believing it is the case.
Yeah.
Especially if no one questions you on it.
Yeah.
He's had what, like 80 something years to tell himself that that's what happened. Like, yeah, you're gonna start to get murky on it. Or even like it's, I wish I didn't do this. But he has to face what he did so that he can. Like, if you have to face what you did so that you can actually like start to heal from what happened.
Yeah.
Like, it's for you, and that's really what the interview is for him.
Yeah.
It's trying to get it all out there so he can look at it all and he can see it in the light and start to
process for real.
Yeah, process for real instead of allowing to be as is, because he's like, I don't know that how much, like, obviously he was able to go on and like do a bunch of stuff, like, it was
So it was
working.
always there underlying and never really like truly dealing with it.
Yeah. And so being able to finally like
confront it all.
Confront it. And once you can confront it, you can step forward.
Yeah.
And that's really what he wanted anyway. Like, I think at the end of the season, at the end of season 2, we see him start to answer the question posed in the cafe.
Mm-hmm.
Where now that it's out in the open, he can see it. Now he's finally able to move forward and decide who he is.
Yeah.
Because he's been wrestling with who he is for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you know, I've already said I have so many issues with the season finale, but the one I don't have an issue with is the fact that it's, like, the gift of vampirism is having time.
Yeah.
Time to work through all this and time to, like, the time that we don't have in our mortal life. Because who could get over that, what he experienced in a mortal lifetime?
God.
But now having the gift to be able to move forward and decide what he's going to do next. But yeah.
My Shaylas. Claudia, Louie. My babies.
Yeah.
But yeah. God. And it all comes back to Claudia.
It all comes back to Claudia. His whole, in my opinion, the whole Dubai penthouse is a museum for Claudia.
Mm-hmm.
There's an absence there. And I keep wanting to say the term lacuna, which is like a thing that like when you're dealing with like especially like archaeological stuff, when there was a hole in a passage, that doesn't mean there's nothing there. It just means that whatever's there is no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of that to me in like the Dubai penthouse. There's a lacuna in that home, and the lacuna is Claudia. And then it starts to get filled with something at the end of the season where he puts the dress there. And, you know, we know he had the diaries there, but like, you know, it's all starting to be placed out in the open in an easy, accessible place.
Instead of tucked away.
Yeah, where only Armand can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't supposed to go that long.
You know, it's Claudia.
I was like, wait. We were going to stop like 30 minutes ago.
You know, wait, how long did we go?
It was like 40 something, and now it's 07.
Well.
Whatever.
Whatever.
It's fine. Y'all can listen to us talk about Claudia for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
You were fine.
Yeah.
You had such a great time.
Yeah.
And you love Claudia.
Yeah.
And what you're going to take from this is that you are going to try to center Claudia more in how you, you know, interact with her and not from, you know, according to a ship or person, whoever it is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even like, you know, with Louie, who I love dearly, but like, let her be her own person. I think we may have talked about this in the fandom one, but like ending on this, like in regards to fandom interaction with her, but like we don't see as much exploration of. There's a lot of like what ifs for like if she was like a baby or a little toddler or whatever, but where's all the exploration of like her if she had really gotten to continue to live her life? We don't see that as much. Sometimes you'll see it like, you know, with like little like shippy, you know, art, but like I would love to see more, and I would love just more, just like really getting into Claudia
draw
herself.
45-year-old Claudia.
Yeah.
I want to see her with smile lines and wrinkles.
I don't want to see TV show 5-year-old Claudia.
No.
I don't need to see that. That didn't happen. That's never going to happen. No. And I don't need to imagine it. It's not something that I need, but I would love to see her as how she would have loved to have seen herself. So, like, let's do that instead.
Yeah. Because I've seen someone do fan art of that with book Claudia. But I haven't seen anyone do it with show Claudia.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So let's get into that. Just you know, in our discussions, just, you know, center Claudia
Yeah.
herself
Yeah.
with no, you know, ulterior motives or anything like that.
No unholy family, no less daughter.
Yeah.
On her own, as she is.
On her own, but positive.
Oh, God.
I was like, wait, positive.
Yep.
Anyways.
Yeah, so that's been our Claudia episode.
Love
I'm
her.
sure I'm gonna go home tonight and be like, fuck!
Miss 10,000 things.
But that's why we'll potentially do write-ups when we think of stuff and we want to talk about a little bit more. Even if it's just like we do a write-up about a specific thing, like just a little bite,
if there is
perhaps.
Something specific, you're like, hey, you didn't mention this, feel free to drop it and then we can talk about it or write about it or something.
Yeah.
Because we probably have thoughts about it, we just forgot. Or just, there's so much. Like, obviously, we don't have time anyways because we already went over it anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but, yes. So, man, I forget how we end these.
Well, if you enjoyed this.
Oh, yeah.
You should, follow us, subscribe.
Yeah, you should subscribe to us on our YouTube channel.
Follow us on all our socials.
They're all in the links below.
You should join us on our Twitch streams.
Yeah, we stream most Sundays.
You know, we can talk about Interview the Vampire there. Maybe.
Yeah, if you come in the chat, I can guarantee you we'll stop and we'll start talking about Interview the Vampire.
Or anything else.
Anything else.
You know, any other, like, you know, you want to talk about some other horror film or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Come talk about your favorite films or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, feel free to drop in. What else? Do we have anything else? What else?
We don't have anything big coming up.
Yeah. The next one is going to be Armand. We're going to get into him. There's some things I wanted to get into here, but I feel like we have to talk about that.
I was like, I'm going to hold back a little bit because it's more relevant to Armand. I don't want to talk too much about Armand and Claudia.
Not even just that. Like, there's some things also reserved for, like, the trial.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was about to get into even more so, like, some of the anti-blackness from Armand.
Oh but that's like, reserved for a trial episode.
Yeah.
So if the thing you're gonna say is like, hey, you didn't talk so much about the thing in the trial, we have a thing dedicated to
the trial is gonna be a whole thing because like it's really
it's really culminating.
I was about to
same brain.
Yeah. And really get into both, you know, Louis, Claudia, and Armand. In that trial. We will talk about others, obviously.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about Madeline because I do think race and gender play into stuff with Madeline, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Than the others there.
Yeah.
But yes, all of this stuff comes to a head in the trial, and so we do want to. Some of the stuff we're holding back on purposefully.
Yeah.
Because we're going to talk about it later. Yes. Same thing with stuff that I'm like, oh, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because I don't want to spend too much time talking about someone else in this one person's episode. Yeah. The same thing happened with like Louise, where I'm like, I can't run down this Armand.
It's kind of hard because obviously all these characters are interconnected.
Yeah, especially for like when we were in the Louis episode, we were talking about like Lumond. I'm like, I don't want to talk too much about Armand's side of Lumond. Yeah. Because I'm going to reserve that a little bit for Armand.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, the next one's going to be Armand. Who boy. What a guy. That's going to be crazy. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one.
Yeah, thanks for listening all the way through. All right, period. Look at us. I don't know. You know,
end it.
Cut the
cameras.
Cut the cameras. There are no cameras.